Listen, there comes a point in your life where you have to stop apologizing for outgrowing people. Stop shrinking yourself to fit into spaces that were never designed for who you're becoming. You're not here to be available to everyone. You're here to build, to grow, to evolve, and to protect the environment that produces the best version of you. Most people waste their potential because they give unlimited access to people who haven't earned even a minute of their time. Your time is not just hours on a clock. It is the purest form of leverage you have. Every minute you give away shapes the direction of your life, whether you realize it or not. Too many people hand out their time like it's unlimited, like it costs nothing, like it can be replaced tomorrow. But time is the only thing you can never earn back. Once it's gone forever. And when you give it to people who contribute nothing to your growth, you're essentially investing in something that yields zero return. That's why most people stay stuck. Not because they lack talent or potential, but because they waste their time on people who drain their drive, distract their focus, and hold back their evolution. The truth is simple: low return people create high levels of chaos in your life. They demand your attention, your energy, your emotional bandwidth, and they rarely give anything of value in return. They complain more than they contribute. They expect more than they earn. They take more than they help build. And every second you spend trying to please them, fix them, or accommodate them is a second stolen from your goals, your future, and your progress. You don't grow by surrounding yourself with people who slow you down. You grow by choosing people who speed you up. When you start treating your attention like capital, everything changes. You begin to calculate your time the way a smart investor calculates money. You ask yourself, what will this cost me? What will this give me? What will I lose if I keep spending my attention here? And suddenly you start noticing how much time you've given away to conversations that didn't matter, arguments that didn't grow you, and relationships that drained you more than they supported you. Attention is expensive, and careless spending bankrupts your potential. People who don't add value to your life will always try to convince you that your boundaries are offensive. They'll say you're cold, distant, unavailable, or selfish. But the truth is that people who benefit from your lack of boundaries will always be bothered when you create them. They like the version of you that was accessible 24/7 because it served them, not you. They like the version of you that said yes to everything because it made their life easier, not yours. And the moment you stop giving them unlimited access, they start showing you who they really are. There is nothing harsh about protecting your time. It's strategic. The more you guard it, the more productive you become. The more selective you become, the more your environment aligns with your goals. And the more your environment aligns with your goals, the faster you grow. Growth doesn't happen in noise, it happens in clarity. And clarity comes from cutting everything that distracts you, drains you, or delays you. Not everyone deserves a share of your time, and not everyone deserves to be part of your journey. As you elevate in life, you'll notice something: your circle will get smaller. Not because you're isolating yourself, because the higher you climb, the more intentional you must be. Elevation requires focus, and focus requires boundaries. When you start valuing your time, you naturally distance yourself from those who don't. You start spending more time with people who challenge you, teach you, inspire you, and push you forward, not the ones who keep pulling you back. You owe it to your future self to stop giving your energy to people who drain your strength. You owe it to your goals to stop giving your attention to distractions disguised as friendships. And you owe it to your potential to stop giving your time to people who haven't earned the right to have it. Your life is shaped by where your time goes, and if your time goes to the wrong people, so will your life. So treat your time like the asset it is. Treat your attention like the capital it is, and treat access to you like something that must be earned, respected, and deserved. Boundaries aren't rude. They are the invisible structure that protects everything you're building. Most people misunderstand boundaries because they think it's about pushing others away, when in reality, it's about pulling yourself toward a higher standard. When you begin to grow, your priorities shift, your goals evolve, and your focus sharpens. You can't carry everyone with you, and you can't let everyone have access to your mental space. Growth requires separation, and separation requires boundaries. Without them, your energy is scattered, your direction gets distorted, and your progress slows down long before you even realize what happened. Boundaries are not walls that shut people out, they're filters that let the right people in. The moment you start saying no more often, you begin to reclaim the time and energy you didn't even realize you had lost. You start noticing how much of your day was filled with unnecessary conversations, unproductive commitments, and emotional labor you didn't need to carry. People often assume saying yes keeps relationships peaceful, but constant yeses build resentment inside you while creating entitlement in others. When you stop overextending yourself, you stop abandoning your own priorities for the sake of someone else's comfort. And that shift alone can change the pace of your life. Winners aren't available to everyone because they understand the cost of divided attention. They know that the quickest way to kill momentum is by allowing endless interruptions and distractions. Momentum is fragile. It requires consistency, focus, and uninterrupted execution. When you're accessible to everyone, you're constantly pulled into situations that don't align with what you're trying to build. People will ask for your time out of habit, not necessity. They will expect your presence even when it slows your progress. The truth is, you can't win big when you allow small demands to dominate your schedule. You elevate your standards by elevating your boundaries. When your time becomes more valuable to you, your yes becomes rarer, your no becomes clearer, and your priorities become obvious. The people who genuinely respect you will understand that your limits are not an attack. They're a sign of discipline. The people who get offended were only benefiting from your lack of boundaries in the first place. Growth forces you to make choices that not everyone will agree with, and that's part of the process. You cannot stay committed to your future while remaining accessible to every old pattern and every old relationship. Availability kills momentum because it constantly resets your focus. You cannot get into a flow state when you're being pulled in 10 different directions. You cannot build something meaningful if you're always responding instead of creating. The people who achieve the most aren't better than you. They're just more intentional with their attention. They protect their focus like it's their lifeline, because it is. Every interruption has a cost, and winners understand that protecting their energy is part of the work. If you want to grow, you need to make your life less crowded. You need to create space for deep work, clear thinking, and uninterrupted progress. You need to prioritize your goals over the expectations of others. And you need to recognize that not everyone deserves to sit at your table just because they want a seat. The more selective you become, the more powerful your direction becomes. You're not pushing people away. You're making room for the version of yourself you're becoming. Boundaries align your actions with your ambition. They separate the noise from the priorities, the distractions from the opportunities, and the people who drain you from the people who inspire you. Every time you enforce a boundary, you're reinforcing your commitment to your growth. Every time you choose discipline over people pleasing, you strengthen the foundation of your future. Your progress depends on your ability to protect what matters and release what doesn't. Your life accelerates when you stop being available for everything that slows you down. Winners know this, and that's why they move differently. They guard their time, they respect their energy, and they choose their environment with intention. They don't apologize for being selective because they understand the stakes. You cannot build momentum if you're constantly stopping to carry others who refuse to move on their own. Most people never reach the level of success they're capable of, not because they lack the skills, intelligence, or opportunities, but because they fail to be selective with what they give their time and energy to. Being talented means nothing if your focus is scattered in 20 different directions. When you say yes to everything, you unconsciously say no to the things that truly matter. The world is full of people who could have accomplished more, built more, and become more, but they let their potential leak out through constant distractions and endless obligations that brought them nothing in return. The fastest way to stay average is to try pleasing everyone around you. When your decisions are driven by the fear of disappointing others, you end up disappointing yourself. Every unnecessary yes becomes another brick in the wall that stands between you and the life you could be building. You start carrying responsibilities that aren't yours, solving problems you didn't create, and wasting hours on tasks that don't align with your goals. This is how people wake up years later feeling stuck, drained, and wondering why their progress never matched their potential. Selectiveness is not about arrogance, it's about intention. When you choose what deserves your time, you choose what future you are investing in. You begin to recognize that not all opportunities are real opportunities, and not all invitations are worth accepting. Some things look good on the surface, but pull you away from the direction you're meant to be moving. Without selectiveness, life becomes a constant reaction instead of a deliberate creation. You're always busy but rarely productive, always active but rarely progressing. The people who grow the fastest are the ones who commit to fewer things with greater intensity. They understand that excellence requires depth, not breadth. They pick a target and put everything into it. They don't give their energy to random obligations or pointless drama that steals focus from their goals. They say no often, not because they don't care, but because they care deeply about what they're trying to build. They aren't scared to disappoint someone temporarily if it means protecting their long-term vision. When you become selective, you start noticing how many things were quietly holding you back. The conversations that drained you, the habits that slowed you, the people who distracted you, and the obligations that added no value to your life. Selectiveness removes the unnecessary weight you've been carrying for years. It frees your time, sharpens your direction, and amplifies your progress. You stop chasing everything and start choosing what actually matters. There is a huge difference between being helpful and being available. Being helpful is powerful. Being overavailable is destructive. When you're accessible to everyone at all times, people begin to treat your time like it has no value. You become the backup plan, the emotional dumping ground, the person who always answers, always shows up, always fixes things. Meanwhile, your own goals get pushed aside. The world won't protect your time for you. You have to protect it yourself. The more selective you are, the more respect you build. People take you seriously when your boundaries are clear, your priorities are consistent, and your time is treated like something valuable. Selectiveness forces others to see that your life has direction, structure, and purpose. It separates those who appreciate your presence from those who only want to benefit from it. It filters out the noise and leaves room for the people and opportunities that genuinely support your growth. Life changes dramatically when you stop giving your yes to everything that asks for it. You begin to operate differently. You think more clearly, work more efficiently, and grow more quickly. You stop living on everyone else's schedule and start living on your own. You stop reacting to life and start building it with intention. You realize that staying average was never a lack of ability. It was a lack of selectiveness, and once you fix that, everything else begins to rise with it. Your environment determines far more about your future than most people are willing to admit. You can have the best intentions, the strongest ambition, and the clearest goals, but if you surround yourself with people who don't match that energy, your growth will always be capped. You absorb the standards of the people you spend the most time with. If they aim low, you start aiming low. If they settle, you start settling. If they complain about everything, you eventually find yourself doing the same without even realizing the shift. Environment is not just a backdrop to your life, it is the invisible force shaping your habits, mindset, and expectations every single day. Being around the wrong people lowers your standards long before it lowers your results. They normalize laziness, they normalize excuses, they normalize blaming circumstances instead of taking responsibility. And slowly, without noticing, you start adopting the same patterns. You stop pushing yourself because no one around you is pushing themselves. You stop aiming big because everyone around you is comfortable staying small. You stop thinking aggressively about your goals because you're stuck in conversations that go nowhere and fuel nothing. That's the danger of a stagnant environment. Its influence is subtle but powerful. The wrong environment doesn't just slow your progress, it rewires your vision. When you share your goals with people who lack ambition, they respond with fear, doubt, or negativity. They tell you you're dreaming too big, moving too fast, or reaching too high. And if you stay around them long enough, you begin to believe it. You start downsizing your dreams to fit their level of comfort. You stop taking risks because they never take any themselves. You unconsciously shrink your life to match their expectations. This is how potential dies, not in one dramatic moment, but through consistent exposure to people who think too small. But when you surround yourself with people who set a high standard for themselves, everything shifts. Ambition becomes normal. Discipline becomes expected. Effort becomes automatic. When you're around people who are constantly improving, your excuses start to feel embarrassing. Your limitations start to feel optional. You begin to challenge yourself in ways you never did before because the environment pulls the best out of you. It's not pressure, it's elevation. High-level people stretch your thinking, raise your expectations, and make you operate at a level you didn't know you were capable of. The right environment raises your ceiling by exposing you to new ways of thinking. You see how people operate when they're serious about their goals. You observe their habits, their routines, their decisions, and you start adopting the same patterns. Their discipline rubs off on you. Their confidence strengthens yours. Their momentum pushes you forward. They don't let you stay comfortable because they aren't comfortable themselves. Growth becomes the standard, not the exception. And once you experience this kind of environment, going back to anything less feels impossible. Being around people who are ahead of you doesn't make you feel insecure. It makes you feel inspired. You start thinking bigger because they think bigger. You start working harder because they work harder. You raise the bar on your own life because you finally see what's possible. This is why proximity matters more than motivation. Motivation fades. Proximity fuels consistent action. You can't help but grow when everyone around you is growing too. That's the power of alignment. Your environment pulls you upward instead of holding you down. Most people underestimate how quickly their life can change by simply changing the room they're in. You don't always need new goals. Sometimes you just need new surroundings. You need conversations that challenge your limits, not reinforce them. You need people who ask better questions, not people who settle for average answers. You need a space where effort is respected, ambition is supported, and growth is encouraged. Once your environment changes, your mindset shifts, your standards rise, and your actions begin to match the person you're trying to become. Your environment shapes the direction of your life by influencing the decisions you make every day. Whether you realize it or not, you are always absorbing the energy around you. If you surround yourself with people who push boundaries, you will start pushing your own. If you surround yourself with people who take ownership, you will start taking ownership. And if you surround yourself with people who refuse to settle, you will find yourself striving for more, not because you were forced to, but because excellence becomes the natural rhythm of your life. When access to you is free, people treat your presence like background noise, always there, always available, always ready to respond at their convenience. They don't pause to appreciate your effort because they didn't have to earn it. They don't value your time because you never required them to. And over time, your energy becomes something they expect, not something they respect. This is the silent trap so many people fall into, being endlessly accessible to those who offer nothing in return. When you give unlimited access, you unintentionally lower your worth in the eyes of others, not because you lack value, but because you never demanded any standard to receive it. Access should cost effort because effort shows intention. When people are willing to put in the work to be part of your life, it reveals who genuinely cares and who simply wants convenience. Those who value you will show up consistently, communicate clearly, and invest in the relationship. They won't treat your time like an afterthought or expect you to carry the entire weight of connection. Effort filters out the people who only want to take without giving anything meaningful back. It separates the ones who respect your presence from the ones who only want to benefit from it. Respect is the foundation of every healthy connection, and without it, access becomes imbalance. When people respect you, they value your boundaries rather than push against them. They understand that your time is limited, your energy is valuable, and your focus matters. They don't demand last-minute attention, expect instant responses, or act entitled to your space. Respect creates alignment in priorities, alignment in communication, and alignment in growth. When you allow access without respect, you're giving people permission to treat you however they choose instead of how you deserve. Alignment is the key that determines whether someone belongs close to you or not. You cannot move forward with people who pull you backward. You cannot grow with people who fear your growth, and you cannot maintain a high standard life while giving constant access to people who live with low standards. Alignment means shared values, shared direction, and shared respect. Without alignment, access becomes costly, not for them, but for you. It drains your mental clarity, weakens your momentum, and slows down every goal you're trying to pursue. When you make yourself too available, people stop noticing the value you bring. It's human nature to overlook what is always within reach. The more freely you distribute your time, the more people assume you have nothing important to do. The more quickly you respond, the more they assume your priorities can wait. And the more consistently you show up for people who don't reciprocate, the more they assume you'll always be there, no matter how little they invest. Value decreases when access is unlimited, not because you're less valuable, but because people stop recognizing what it costs you to give. Setting standards for access isn't about being distant or cold, it's about protecting what you're building. You cannot invest deeply in your goals if you allow endless interruptions. You cannot maintain emotional strength if you're constantly giving energy to relationships that don't pour anything back. And you cannot build a life of discipline if you're surrounded by people who don't respect the structure you're trying to create. Standards are not walls, they're checkpoints. They determine who gets close because proximity affects your peace, your progress, and your potential. The people who truly value you will never be intimidated by your standards. They will rise to meet them. They will show consistency instead of excuses, clarity instead of games, and respect instead of entitlement. These people are assets, not drains. They strengthen your environment instead of weakening it. They don't demand constant access because they understand that your time and energy are connected to the life you're trying to build. When someone aligns with your direction, you never have to chase them, convince them, or explain your boundaries. They naturally fit into your world. Life becomes significantly clearer when you realize that access to you is a privilege, not a right. Your presence carries weight, your energy carries impact, and your time carries value. When you make people earn access through effort, respect, and alignment, you attract relationships that elevate your life instead of complicating it. You create space for conversations that empower you, environments that support you, and connections that grow with you. And in that space, you finally begin to experience the strength of being selective rather than endlessly available. Growth demands separation because every new level of your life requires a different version of you, and that version cannot emerge if you stay tied to the patterns that held you back. You can't step into your future while clinging to the comfort of your past. The habits that once felt normal begin to feel heavy when you outgrow them, and the people who once felt familiar start to feel distant when your goals no longer match theirs. This is not conflict, it's evolution. The moment you commit to growth, everything around you begins to reorganize your priorities, your routines, your circle, and even your tolerance for mediocrity. There's a very real friction that happens when you start changing. The people who benefited from your old version won't always appreciate the new one. They might call you different, distant, or difficult, but in reality, you're just becoming aligned with a higher standard. You start caring less about fitting in and more about leveling up. You stop looking for acceptance and start looking for progress. You realize that growth doesn't happen in familiar environments. It happens when you step into spaces that challenge you, stretch you, and force you to rise above who you were yesterday. Growth exposes what no longer serves you. It reveals habits that waste your time, relationships that drain your energy, and mindsets that limit your progress. The more you evolve, the more uncomfortable you become with the things that kept you stuck. It's not that you suddenly dislike those things, it's that you can no longer shrink yourself to exist in them. You begin to understand that staying accessible to your old life requires sacrificing your new one, and that trade is far too expensive for someone committed to becoming their highest self. As you grow, your standards naturally rise. What you once tolerated becomes unacceptable. What you once entertained becomes distracting. What you once pursued becomes irrelevant. This shift isn't about being better than anyone. It's about being better than who you used to be. Growth forces you to make decisions that aren't always comfortable but are necessary. You learn that you cannot keep everyone close simply because they were close in the past. You start choosing relationships based on alignment rather than history. Separation is not about cutting people off impulsively. It's about recognizing who contributes to your progress and who keeps you anchored to an older version of yourself. Some people were meant to be part of your journey temporarily, not permanently. They played their role, taught their lesson, and served their purpose. Holding on to them out of nostalgia only slows down your ascent. Growth requires the emotional maturity to release what no longer moves you forward, even when it's familiar or comfortable. When you distance yourself from old habits and environments, it creates space for new opportunities. You begin to attract people who match your mindset instead of challenge your ambition. You attract conversations that elevate your thinking instead of shrink your vision. You attract experiences that align with the person you're becoming instead of the person you were. This transition can feel lonely at first. That loneliness is simply the gap between the life you're leaving and the life you're building. The path to becoming your next version demands discipline. It demands clarity. It demands the courage to stop revisiting chapters that you've already outgrown. You can't evolve if you keep responding to the same distractions, entertaining the same excuses, or staying available to people who don't respect where you're headed. Growth requires a different level of focus, and that focus is impossible when your attention is constantly pulled backward. Everything you want exists on the other side of the separation you've been avoiding. Every new level requires letting go of something that kept you comfortable but not committed. Growth asks you to choose the future over the familiar, the aligned over the easy, and the elevated version of yourself over the accessible version everyone else is used to. There comes a moment when you stop apologizing for wanting more from your life. You stop shrinking yourself to make other people comfortable, and you stop giving access to people who only drain and distract you. You finally realize that the world doesn't reward the loudest person in the room. It rewards the one who protects their energy, guards their focus, and moves with intention. And that's the shift that changes everything. When you understand that not everyone deserves access to you, your world becomes quieter, but your results become louder. You begin to feel a different kind of power, one that doesn't come from ego, but from clarity. You start choosing your battles, choosing your relationships, choosing your habits with a level of discipline that most people will never understand. You build routines that sharpen your mind instead of numb it. You build boundaries that elevate you instead of cage you. You build a life where your time is sacred, your vision is unshakable, and your standards are non-negotiable. And the funny thing is, the moment you stop chasing people is the moment the right people start chasing you. Because the truth is, you were never meant to give unlimited access to everyone. You were meant to give limited access to most and full access to the version of yourself you're trying to build. You were meant to outgrow circles that refuse to grow with you. You were meant to remove yourself from tables where your value is questioned and build new tables where your presence is respected. And when you do that, your life stops feeling like survival and starts feeling like purpose. You level up in silence. You upgrade your identity, not your excuses. You stop explaining your dreams to people who can't even imagine themselves winning. You stop lowering your voice around people who never raise their standards. You stop wasting your mental energy trying to convince small minds to understand big visions. You realize that the fastest way to lose yourself is to give access to everyone, and the fastest way to find yourself is to protect your circle like your future depends on it, because it does. You start showing up differently. You stand taller, think sharper, work harder, and move quieter. You're not fueled by validation anymore. You're fueled by progress. You're not driven by comparison. You're driven by purpose. You're not trying to prove anything to anyone. You're trying to become someone you can respect. Your silence becomes strategy. Your discipline becomes identity. Your boundaries become a filter that separates what drains you from what grows you. And the people who once didn't value you will feel the shift. Some will get angry. Some will get distant. Some will get curious. But the ones who truly belong in your life will rise with you, not resist you. They will respect your space, honor your effort, and cheer for your growth instead of competing with it. You learn quickly that real support is quiet, real loyalty is consistent, and real love never feels like pressure. Protecting your peace doesn't close doors, it opens the right ones. So let this be the moment you stop negotiating your worth. Let this be the moment you finally choose yourself. Let this be the moment you stop giving front row seats to people who would never do the same for you. Your future is too big, your purpose is too real, and your time is too valuable to be wasted on people who don't elevate you. Because once you start protecting your access, you start protecting your potential.